Welcome to the Empowering Insights podcast, where Grace and Dawn explore energy and identify new ways to support the enhancements of our well-being. Join us as we navigate the globe to engage in eye-opening conversations with esteemed guests, sharing their unique insights and discovering valuable techniques to propel your life forward. In each episode, we will share 3 empowering takeaways, providing actionable resources to recharge your momentum and support your overall well-being. Join us on this transformative exploration to discover the expansive potential of energy in supporting your mind, body, and spirit. Elevate your life with the Empowering Insights podcast. Welcome to the very first episode of the Empowering Insights podcast. We're your hosts, Grace and Dawn, and today marks the beginning of an incredible journey into the realms of healing energy and holistic well-being. The Empowering Insights podcast was born from our shared passion for exploring the incredible world of healing, energy, and holistic well-being. Our mission is clear: to explore amazing people, places, and perceptions from around the globe. In this first episode, we want you to get to know the voices behind the microphones, understand what drives us, and learn how we personally connect to the world of energy. Throughout this episode, we'll share our individual stories, the experiences that awakened our curiosity about energy, and how our unique perspectives shape the direction of this podcast. We'll also touch on our vision for the future, what we hope to achieve, and why we're so excited to take you on this transformational journey. So if you've ever wondered why we're so passionate about empowering you with the insights into the world of energy, stay tuned. We're about to peel back the curtain and share our own empowering insights. Let's dive in.
Hello. Hi, Dawn.
Hi, Grace.
Hi. So thank you for the introduction. Obviously, I'm Grace. I think we have about an hour to introduce ourselves. So I think just, as you said, just dive in. Basically, as Dawn was saying, her and I both experience energy and use the way we experience energy to help others as best we can. For me, my experience started, I think, more when I was a child. And as a child, I grew up in an inner city environment with a single mom. And really, my babysitters were sometimes strangers in the neighborhood and neighborhood kids and anybody who was on the playground at any time of the day. So a lot of people I've met in my life can relate to that and other people cannot. But when you have the ability to grow up in that type of environment, what tends to happen is people will say you get a tough skin. For me, I felt very protective of anybody who was in my inner circle. They were like the superhero and I was like their sidekick who had to protect them. That's how I felt as a kid. And with that came, I guess, a perception of that anybody who would come near anybody I loved, I became very defensive and protective. As I got a little older, that feeling that anybody who was walking by me, I could feel that, oh, they had something bad to think, or they were thinking something negative, or they were trying to hurt someone, or any of those weird feelings became more of, I think, a behavioral or part of my behavior, or even the way I perceive the world. So when I got older and I would say, oh, I still have this chip on my shoulder, like everybody's out to get me, I started to explore psychology. You know, people were like, maybe you should get help with that because not everybody's out to get you. And I'm like, you don't feel that person's thinking that? Do you feel that person's thinking this? And it ended up in my exploration of maybe the psychological side that I found I was very loyal and that, yes, I had a grudge. But one day when I was with someone talking about it, one of my friends said to me, why do you feel everybody's out to get you? And I said, can't you hear? Like when somebody walks up, don't you hear what they're thinking? Like they say one thing, but they mean something else. She said, now, you mean you interpret what they're thinking or you have a feeling what they're thinking? I just did air quotes, like air quotes, a feeling what they're thinking. I'm like, no, I can hear what they're thinking. Like they're not thinking what's coming out of their mouth. So they say one thing and they're thinking something else. Her response to that was like, you're crazy. It's just you being overly emotional. All the things that you would get from maybe a psychological analysis. Mm-hmm. And then as I got older, I was just like, I just have that grudge. You know what? There's a benefit to that because one, I'm very loyal. It makes me very protective of anybody who's in my life. And as I got older and children and, and have strong friendships, it could be an advantage. But then there was just more. I just kept hearing what people were saying, and it wasn't what was coming out of their mouths. I think when things really changed for me drastically was one day I was with one of my girlfriends, and I knew her, she was a new friend. We'd maybe been friends for like 2 or 3 months. So she invited me over to her house and she said, listen, I want to show you what we just did with our basement. We just redid our basement. We got into her house. The kitchen was connected to the living room. So when you walk in through the garage door, you saw her living room, and then you saw the fireplace, which was up against the wall, and it had a shelf on the fireplace. We walked into the kitchen, and then she said, I'm just going to go upstairs. I'll be right down, and get yourself some juice or whatever you want. I'll be right down, and then we'll check out the basement. You'll love it. And so I walked over to the fireplace, and on the fireplace, there was I don't know how to this like pearlescent frame. It looked like when you see shells, the inside of a shell, and there's like pearl. So it was like that kind of, like you could get at the beach, this pretty frame. And then inside there was a picture of this woman, and it was so cute because she had on what I think like 50s Americana, those dresses that puff out, and then the tight, tiny little waist, and then the big dress, and it looked like big flowers, like yellow flowers and polka dots. And then she had this cute little patent leather black bag, and she had her hair like bouffant style, not something that was normal at the time. And then she had flowers, these cute little yellow flowers in her hair. I was looking at that, and then my friend came down and she said, oh, let's go in the basement. And she said, look what I did. I love it. If you ever need this team's name, they're great. They redid my basement. And I said, no, it's nice. I said, are you going to have a party? And she said, yeah, I'm thinking of having a party to kind of christen it. And I said, you should invite the woman upstairs to the party. She said, what do you mean the woman upstairs? I'm like, the picture you have on your fireplace, the woman with the polka dot dress. And this was the first time I was positive what I saw, but the person's reaction made me uncomfortable. Like I was very happy until she looked at me when I said that. And she looked at me and she said, I don't know what you're talking about. What do you mean a picture? I said, the woman upstairs, she's got the flowers in her hair. She's got like that polka dot dress, that patent leather bag. I said, it kind of looks like you got dressed up for Halloween, but not you. And she kind of moved back from me a little, which also made me a little uneasy. And then she said, could you show me the picture? I was like, yeah, sure, I could show you the picture. I really didn't know what was wrong with her.
It was like right there on the fireplace.
Right there on the fireplace. So we went upstairs and she said, show me where. And I'm like, right here on the fire, right here on this shelf. Where did you put it? She's like, where did I put what? Tell me what this woman looks like again. And I'm like, and I showed her. And I said, this is the first time I said, I feel like you have the outfit. I said, I don't know if this is you. And I just went with what came in my head. And then she looked a little scared and then said, wait a minute here. And at that point, I thought, that can't be good. She's walking away from me in this woman's house. I haven't known her that long. I didn't know what was going on. I'm like, what is she playing with me here? She went upstairs. She came down and she had the same picture I saw, the woman with the bag, not the picture frame. And I said, why did you take it upstairs? Like, I literally was confused. Why did you take it upstairs and take it out of the frame? She said, I didn't. That's my mom. She died 12 years ago. And that's the frame it was in at her house.
Wow.
That it was like a frame she got from the ocean when she went to the ocean. How do you know that? And I'm like, because you probably had it on the shelf here. And then I'm like, backpedaling, like, wait a minute. So she said, no, it's been in my drawer and it's been there since she's passed. Like things were handed over to me and I took that from her house. So how did you know? And at that point, I couldn't say anything and I got uncomfortable and just said, you know what? You must have shown it to me. She said, in my bedroom drawer? I don't think so. Then I was like, you know what? Your basement's beautiful. I think we should go. Maybe we should get. So that was my first experience where I was very clear of two things. One, of the response that I would get to somebody who wasn't ready for an energetic message of any type, or wasn't very familiar with energy itself, and that it can show up in so many ways, that it was alarming to her. In that, the things I see, feel, and hear 90% of the times have nothing to do with me. So that that was a good lesson, that take your ego away about this me being right. I saw what I saw, and
Right.
understand that there's something more to it. From that, when that happened, then it not snowballed, but it seemed to be a place where I could identify where everything catapulted. Where after that, when I'd be with people, I'd say things and feel things that they had experienced with other individuals that there's no way I could know. And I wouldn't even know why I'd say it. I would just say, oh, I have to tell them this. It would almost be as if you have a message for someone, like, oh, I have an idea. And Dawn, we've done this before, where it's like, I have to tell you now before I forget.
Right.
I remember
Yep.
I was going to tell you something. That's the feeling I get. And then it transformed into where I could feel what that person, which is it's just empathic. It's very empathic, where you can feel what somebody felt at a certain time, anytime, and feel what the other person felt and thought while they were talking or with that person at that given time. Which, what that does is it just confirms the reality in their existence to whatever happened. That you would know that, especially when you didn't know the person. And that's what tended to happen. Listen, with people in my own lives, everything I do, I try to identify a very clear process and procedure. And the process is, one, could it have anything I think, or anything you think, or anybody thinks, could it come from our conscious, subconscious, unconscious, whatever we don't know, could it come from that? Listen, maybe I saw a picture of her family somewhere. I tend to do that, where I'm like, the process is, let's go down that list to make sure you didn't see it anywhere.
Right.
You didn't hear that word anywhere. You didn't experience it. There's no way you could know that. And then the procedure for me is to go with whatever I'm feeling to help that person unblock something they're going through. So in the beginning, it would just come very organically, and I'd just say it. I'd just say whatever I felt, heard, or saw. Now it's evolved into where it has to be I've put up my guidelines and my process procedures to anything that comes my way, just like you would to a person. You meet someone, and there are certain personalities that do not benefit from you, and you don't benefit from them. And so you put up your process and procedure. And that is, if I meet you, I'll maybe just hang out with you in a group, or maybe I'll just talk to you for 5 minutes, or maybe I'll explore with you, or maybe I want you in my life if you want me in yours. You know what I mean? So it's those type of parameters that I put around anything that comes to me now, because
you need those healthy boundaries.
Exactly. You do need healthy boundaries, especially when there's a consistency, where it will happen often, and often it will happen prior to somebody coming to me. So for me, it comes specifically in helping 3 sets of people. Right now, I found that it tends to be a trend, where it will be people who are considered to be socially on a spectrum. So whether they're autistic, or they maybe are defined or socially diagnosed. And, that's okay. Listen, we all use words to communicate. I think what happens in societies and cultures and with beliefs, we all need something to make it quicker for us to understand. And we know that with social media, it's like a 5-second this or a 2-second that. So with words, if you say someone's autistic, and then you say, oh, well, they're this level of autistic, or they're this level, it makes it quicker for someone to maybe identify, how they have to relate to them. So I get that. I understand that. But for me, what I see is I do see energy, and it comes in the form of number, shapes, words, people, almost like movies sometimes. But then in other times it can look like streams, like if you see lines and they're moving. So what I've found is that when people who are diagnosed on the spectrum, either one, it be a family who has a child, a young child or a young adult who's on the spectrum, or has been diagnosed with a social disorder where they can't relate to other people or are in fear of others and their energy in any way. Because if you understand autism in any way, at any level, you will see that an autistic person, and one of my close friends is autistic, he's an adult, but you can see with me, he talks. And then when you put him in a group, he's very defensive.
Different, yeah.
Cannot relate, and everybody's out to get me, which is why he's attracted to me, because I understand that from my childhood. So there's a resonance of energy that, oh, I get it before he even says it. Someone with the adults, I typically work or help adults in work environments. I call it the Steve Jobs syndrome, where everybody wants a Steve Jobs in their company, a brilliant genius who changes the world.
Right.
And everyone forgets he was a very narcissistic, his own words and other people who lived with him and worked with him's words, not patient, socially uncomfortable, socially aggressive in many cases, individual who was brilliant in his vision, but could not identify or feel safe with people who were not able to move at the pace he was. That I understand. And so many people that I've worked with or supported them in their work, they can be identified as extremely brilliant in their specific field. But then from a business model, they cause massive dysfunction to themselves and to everyone around them because they become very protective. For me, I'm able to feel, hear, see on both sides what other people are feeling and thinking and seeing. And that could be from my experience in business. So it's not, oh, it's coming from a different place. It's coming from familiarity, which is a psychologically based trait. You've got familiarity with something so that you recognize it when you go into a situation. That's with that. But with the individuals who I'm helping, I'm able to feel, hear, and see what they're feeling when they talk to specific people and what that person is thinking when they're dealing with this individual, in this case, a gentleman. It seems to help. It helps to give a clearer view. Children and young adults, I try to bring a truth of what they see and hear to light for the family who are dealing with a very, very challenging situation that is very painful. There is often, when I've worked with families in this situation, the families feel responsibility. They feel that it's their fault in some way, which it is not. And they feel lack of control. It doesn't matter what they do. Nothing is helping move things forward. One of the individuals I helped allowed me to discuss without obviously giving any personal details. She was beautiful. And she said, share this anytime you have the opportunity to, in the event that it would help. I had a family, and for me, I support families with energy work internationally. Most of the people I work with are in Europe and Asia. Some individuals are in the States, but mostly on that side of the world. This individual was in Asia and had many cultural norms that defined what was good or bad for her family. So it was like a double whammy, because as with any strong belief, which is great, it was perhaps a negative for her and her family that her child, who was 21 when a shift happened to him, it was almost like they failed. And it was shameful in their mind to them. So they had seen psychiatrists, they'd seen psychologists, they'd been to medical doctors. And what had happened is something had happened in the family that caused a rift. At that point in time, their oldest child decided the way he would deal with it emotionally was to turn off to the world. And He literally locked himself in his bathroom for, when I met her, it was 2 years.
Wow.
He had been, in his bathroom.
That's a long time.
So extremely long time. And the communication stopped. This was someone who was extremely intelligent. Prior had been, his focus had been in science and engineering and, all of these beautiful things. And he just one day just locked the door and wouldn't come out. And obviously he would come into his room just to open the door to the bathroom and let people come into his room just to eat, for them to bring in food. And then he would take the food into the bathroom. It was so bad that when they tried to get a doctor in because he hadn't showered in a significant amount of time, he locked all doors. And for them, it wasn't an option. They felt to do anything drastic, to knock down the door, or any of those things, which were recommended by other family members. So when they came to me, it was desperate. And the first thing I could feel is what he was thinking. And it was actually contrary to what they thought he was thinking. They thought he was thinking nothing, that he maybe had short-wired neurologically, and that they wanted to do tests. Maybe he had had a stroke or something. They knew he was consuming food, but they couldn't really see him outside of being in the dark. He didn't want to be seen. And what I heard was, I say, I'm not laughing at the situation, but I'm laughing because it worked out well in the end. But I'm laughing because he really was acting more like a 15-year-old who was listening to everything everybody was saying in the house and almost laughing about what they were talking about. So I'd never been to their house, and I just said, he's in a room that is adjacent to the kitchen, and there's a vent that goes from the kitchen to the living room to one of the bedrooms upstairs. And he's saying, oh, you have it so wrong, to you about, you were saying something like, we need to put this in his food, and you have this because you were putting like something to make him sleep in the food, so maybe you could get a doctor in. And so he heard you and would dump the food. And then he'd write a little note that would say, by the way, tomorrow I want this. I don't want that. He was playing you. And what it was his way of taking back control of his world. And for him, the diagnosis that doctor was given without being able to actually see him was that perhaps he was schizophrenic and, or bipolar or something. And he just went into a state of non-existence. He was almost catatonic, which is listen, if you haven't seen the client, and this is kind of is happening, the patient, I tell everyone to go for me, to experience anything that rings true to you and can help you before you come to me. Come to me. People come to me as a last resort. And in this situation, I was a last resort. And what I heard from the family that the doctor had communicated was understandable, but it wasn't what I was hearing in this young adult's mind, or what I was picking. His energy was saying, you want me to control the situation? Well, bleep it, I'm controlling it. And I'm going to control it in a way that works for me. Until they were able to, and it took, maybe I worked with them for 10 months, 2 times a week. And then it would be off and on once a week for a couple more months. What I was able to do is have conversations with him in my head. And this is it. Don't ask me how. I don't know how. It's like if I'm talking to you right now and you answer me back and I say, oh, don't answer me. I could talk to him and say, listen, you're misunderstanding. They're really suffering. Your family is suffering. You think you're giving them the peace because now you could control the situation, but they're suffering. Your mom acts strong, but she can't be anymore. It's affecting the whole family. So let's sort it out in a different way. You figure it out. And he literally would say things to me. First of all, I don't know you. Get away from me and my family. He would say that, which he had the right to. And then finally, I said to his mother, this is what he's communicating. He's communicating that he needs to feel like he has control again. So can you give him something that has control? What does he like? We were actually working with video games. because it would engage him again. And so she would play the video game with him. And then the family would play the video game with him. And he was good at that, so he would win. And they knew he would win. It was very, juvenile in mindset. That was for a couple months. And then I said to the mother, he said, you're happy with me being like this because then you can keep an eye on me. And she said, I said that to him the other night. Like, I guess I could be happy. She said, I was sitting in his room and I said, I guess I should be happy because at least I know where you are and I could keep an eye on you. And so he heard you say that. So go back and tell him it's not making you happy. Tell him your truth, because your energy is the same thing. You both want to control the situation and you're doing it. And it's not making all of you content because you all have different vibrations.
Yes.
So let's get a little consistency. They did. And he is now out of his room. He's in his own room in their house. He's taken showers. He's seen a doctor. He lets nurses come in to help and take his vitals to check because he doesn't like to go to hospitals. He actually went for a car ride like a couple months ago. So he's out, he's going out. And what I found is I can actually walk places with him in my mind. I don't know how to explain that. So he's scared of going in public places. And so I remember one morning I woke up and he said, let's go for a walk. And I heard him say, and I was like, I'm busy today. I can't go for a walk. I'm really busy and I can't have this conversation. But he said, no, I'm ready to go for a walk. And so I literally, it's like if you think and you have a memory, that's how I feel. It's a memory, but it's happening now. So I went for a walk with him and his mother called me that night and said, you won't believe this, Grace. He wants to go for a walk. And he was like just staring at the window and he wants to go for a walk. So that for me is not wow, that's so exciting. It has become where it's part and parcel of what I do. And I try to set my boundaries if it doesn't work for me. If I had meetings or I had things going on or I had other people I was helping that day, I would have said, you're going to have to wait. And so it's almost a little bit of the maternal tough love. Like,
yes.
It's not all about you.
Yeah.
The whole universe is not all about you. Those are a couple of his examples of people who maybe have social disorders that I have helped. I see energy on a spectrum, very scientifically, in that there is a spectrum of energy. There are different, just like, visually, there are different colors. We see a rainbow and it's beautiful. Nobody has a problem with that. Nobody has any qualm when we get on a phone call and I'm able to talk to you. And then I think, oh yeah, that makes sense. But I don't see all the waves, the sound waves, and all the connections that are making this interface or this podcast happen. But I believe it and I trust it because we're getting a positive message across. Well, that's how I feel about what I experience. And when I do see energy, I see the spectrum on one side, extreme side, is all about me. And if it was you, it'd be all about you. It's, people might say ego, but I say it's self-preservation. So it's, I need you to be good for me the way that serves me in a way that will benefit me. Thank you very much. Because I am amazing. I'm fantastic. I'm brilliant. All those things are great. And if you're willing to support me for just me and put your needs aside, because it's not about you, it's about me, I'm willing to give you whatever you need if it's about me and if it benefits me. You see that? Like there's really, if that's an agreeable relationship, nothing wrong with that. Where I don't resonate with that is that you can only stay in that type of vibration if you continually take from others.
Right.
And,
Absolutely.
even if they're giving, you can only stay there if you're constantly going, oh, thank you very much, Dawn. By the way, is there someone else? You. Okay. Let me just make clear. I'm amazing. You know it. I know it. And now what are you going to do for me? Now, listen, if you're in that space for a little while, because if you don't know you're amazing, if you don't know you're fantastic and you're brilliant in every way, Dawn, you're amazing. But if you don't know that, then you don't get the whole picture. You don't know how much power you have, how
Right.
much brilliance you have. You don't see
Yeah.
the truth, right? It's where if you need to pull other people into it. So that's one side of the spectrum that I can see. And then the other side of the spectrum is the complete opposite, which is I do everything for you 24/7. You are the most amazing person in the world. I just love you. You're like, oh, you're my brilliant, like everything you do. How do you do your hair? How do you do this? How do you do that? Oh my God, you're so, I want to be like you. There is nothing about me that could be as good as this. Just giving, giving, giving.
Right.
And, or I need to take care of you. Well, what about, do you ever feel down sometimes? Do you ever, it doesn't matter because I have to give to you. That in the same to me, I like the idea of giving because giving, everyone says this, who really gives from their heart in any way. I felt so good when I did it. I felt so good. Like I helped that person out. And, I just felt good giving because there's an essence of your power. You see, you're so powerful. You can help others. That's brilliant. You're actually seeing your own brilliance in a way that's helping others. But when you're on that side of the spectrum, it's just, no, it's just you. It's just about everybody else. And that in this energy, then it brings us to where we are, which is in between.
The
And in
balance.
between, the balance to find, listen, some days your balance might be a little bit of seesawing to the, it's all about me. I get it. And you know what? I don't need you to tell me how good I am. I know how good I am. Or it could be, you know what? You're brilliant too. And today I'm going to help you because I just feel like giving today. And it's not pulling anything away from me. And then you find you go up and down where people get stuck and where I found that people who have reached out to me get stuck and young people is that they are exposed to 24/7 of you are either bad and you're self-centered and bad and many good. You're bad, good. Honestly, if my kids heard me say that, they would like vomit, right? Like, oh, bad, good. Yeah, bad, good. No, but you're bad in a way where you're self-centered and your ego's there and you just are so cocky and arrogant and you don't care that I don't have because you want to show off that you have. They see that. And if you don't have that, then you're a loser and all these things. Or they see the opposite. If you don't give every part of every single thing, you're not a good person. How are young people supposed to navigate that? Because
very tough.
It's challenging. So when I work with people, I pretty much go through a process of giving them, and I say this, but I say a clear view. And how we get a clear view is really, for me, I'm able to tap into their feelings and tell them how they felt at a certain time. So let's say they follow a certain influencer, which is nothing wrong with that. To be able to identify why you're following that person. Are you following it because you think they're amazing and you can resonate with that? Like that makes you feel good because that person looks the way that you resonate with or feels the way or says things that make you feel good? Or are you doing the opposite? You're following them because you feel lacking and they remind you of what you should be, which is something when I do work with people, I'm able to actually pinpoint situations where they felt that way, whether it, for example, them being out for dinner and then they were having a great time and then they see a billboard of someone, something very basic, or they see something on their phone and they're like, I felt great. Now I don't feel great. Well, because you're resonating, if you don't feel good, it means you're resonating with something that has nothing to do with your vibration. That's the only time you don't feel good. If you're somewhere and you're like, oh, it doesn't mean the place is bad. It means it doesn't resonate with you. Exactly. So that's my passion. And I think, and I'm not speaking for you because I know I'll go on forever, Dawn, but I think that's where we have a very strong resonance is that for that with young people who are truly trying to navigate, they're not trying. If you're finding people online that you want to be like, that means you're trying to find where you balance. You're trying to find who could be the best you. It's just they're forgetting that the best you, all the power you're looking for
It's right
is actually
inside.
within you. It
Yeah.
is with you. The last thing that has happened that tends to surprise individuals now is that people can send me images, a
Hmm.
picture, and things will appear on that picture that resonates with the way they feel or what they're thinking or someone they're thinking about. That has happened more often for me. So it tends to, especially when you're dealing with young people, I just think it's a way of tapping into energy that just like your phone works, and then you can have a video on your phone, or you could talk on your phone, or you could have a conference call on your phone. I just think I'm just tapping into a way to, and don't ask me how, because I have no idea how it works. I
Still
honestly
working on
have
that.
no idea. It just works. We're working on it. But it helps validate to the individual that, okay, whoa. And then it gets them engaged at what do you think is bringing that visual to you? I mean, you saw that somewhere and now it's appearing on the air. What do you think? That's not me. That's you. That means, you have the capability to show your energy in many different ways. And it's wasted when you're just focusing it on someone you think that you should be. Because once you really focus on who you want to be, and that could take years, or it could take a week, or it could be an epiphany and happen overnight. But until you focus on that, you're not going to see how brilliant you are. I think for me, that's where one of the things that is unusual about some of the things that I'm able to show people, that coming up is one of the most unusual things. And the images are very comforting. They tend to be very comforting for people with autistic kids, because I'll sometimes be able to show them pictures of what their child is seeing. And it'll be in the form of colors or shapes, or I'll give you one more example and then I'm done. I had one client in Europe. She had a child who had been diagnosed as autistic, and she was starting to act, they said, strangely. And they said she acted autistic, but now she would start doing things that weren't usual. And she said, if you know what that is, I'd be very happy. And I'd bring you in where maybe you can, work with us to help us understand clearly. I said, whatever it is that will help her, great. When I got off the phone with her, I literally saw myself get up on like a table, like a bed. I jumped on a bed and then hopped on a table, like a desk, a little desk. And then I put my hand and was like talking to someone on the wall. Yeah, literally talking to someone. That's what I saw.
Mm-hmm.
And I just saw this person looking at me saying, it's okay, I get you. It's okay, I understand you. It's okay, I get you. It's okay, I understand you. But they were saying it this was German, and I don't know German. So whatever it was, I wrote it down. I just wrote down, I get you, I get you. So I said, listen, what I'm getting is that I'm jumping on the bed, and then I jump on a table, and there's a window in the back of the bed. And then I described the whole room, complete quiet. And then that feeling for me, my ego jumped in. I'm like, oh no, what did I say wrong? And then she started crying, and she said, let me explain. She walks in the room, the bed is against the window, and then she jumps on the bed, hops on her table that's like a school desk, and then puts her hand on the wall, and she'll just talk for an hour. And I said, well, what's this word? She says, I get you. Mama, he says, I get you. She says she gets me. And she'll say that, and then she just won't talk the rest of the day. And I said, well, what she's saying is true then. So let me show you an image that looks like what I'm feeling and seeing, and then show it to her. And they showed it to her, and she just smiled and held the phone, like wouldn't let go of the phone.
Wow.
Because, so for that had nothing to do with me. I was just a telephone.
Right.
I call myself a telephone. I don't know what model telephone. I'd like a nice case with a couple sparkles on it. But I'm the telephone. And there's no way I could know that. But it is not about knowing it. It's the fact that she felt better.
Yes.
The little girl,
Absolutely.
and then the parents weren't fearful, because especially when you're dealing with autistic children or any children, they can feel how people feel at a higher level than Adults can, because we block all that up with all the noise that we hear every day. So when you feel fearful, they feel fearful, or they feel something's wrong with them. So now the parents, at least when she goes through things like that, periodically I'll get messages and I'm like, okay, she just saw a dog. Just, calm down. It's not an emergency. Like she wants a dog. It doesn't have to be where you're changing the world and the universe. Small things where we're all communicating with each other and listening is more important. I've helped people around the world, and the one thing that I hear that everyone from every belief, from no matter who they are and where they're from and what they've been exposed to, the one thing I hear is the need to know my purpose and to think I have power, that you're listening to me, to know my purpose. Because when you don't listen, when you don't hear me, it means I'm not important. And that's with everyone wants that. And for us, what I would love to do and what I'm really excited about doing is about, one, giving people different insights about all these different ways of looking at things around the world, and with all the modalities that you've explored, and all the things I've explored, and the people I've talked to and you've talked to just, if one person or two people or three people or more can go, oh, I didn't try that. I didn't know that. I didn't know it meant that. I didn't know I could look at it this way, because nothing means anything. It's just an interpretation.
Right.
Everything is just our interpretation. Sometimes there's so much information out there that we could look for things to try to figure what we're going through out. And it's like, oh, I don't resonate, don't like it. They told me that, or they think I'm this, or and it just it's so easy to turn away. It's so easy not to engage. And yet, if we can encompass all these different mindsets and opportunities that are all with the purpose of helping people move forward in a positive way, hey, you can pick whatever you want. Just pick whatever resonates with you to move forward, not what resonates with you to stay in one place, and definitely not with anything that resonates with you to feel less than, because you are never less than. It's like I'm saying this to you, and Don's like, yeah, I know
Amen,
that.
sister.
Hi, can we high five on a podcast?
High five.
High five, yeah.
Nobody can see it, but high five.
I know, high five. So that's kind of my intro. I'm really looking forward to talking about the modalities for you and my modalities more in depth, and sharing some of the modalities in detail. But for now, I hope that gave a little bit of an introduction to my wild insight. Because you know what, the one thing I've done now is I do own that this is the way I am. And I don't feel uncomfortable anymore talking like this. But there are times where if people react to me in a way like, what the heck? What was that? I cross-check myself and I go, yeah, hey, I'm human. I'm going to cross-check myself. I'm not better, worse. It just happens. My telephone works in a different way. Maybe it's not working properly. Maybe it didn't get to, but it's attuning to positive. That's all I care about. Positive, move forward. And that's all you can do. So
that was some very empowering insights. And yes, you are definitely a unique woman with what you're capable of doing. But I know we've talked about it before. There's a lot of things that both of us do, and I'll get into my story in a couple minutes. But so many of us are able to do so many more things. It's just we have not gotten to that place where we really go within to see what we're capable of, right? Because we have so much limiting beliefs, fears, traumas, everything that have
exactly
back for so long. And it's like when we finally break down those layers and remember who we really are, this stuff isn't really strange or, weird. It's part of life. It's energy, it's frequency, it's part of science, right? So yeah, it's always wonderful to listen to you and hear your story, and just you're helping so many incredible people. And I relate to people on the spectrum too, because I've actually worked with them as well. So I actually want to pick up on a couple of places where you were talking about on the end, and it's interesting because I'm a co-host on this virtual summit that's coming up in November, and it's given insights to young adults as well as our youth on just different conversations for fitness and learning how to work with your emotions and finances and just everything. One of the things,
So proud of you.
yeah, and
So
one of the
proud.
things, thank you, and life purpose. So that was another thing, life purpose and figuring out what your gifts are. You don't teach this in school. One of the things I said, and it pinged when you were talking, was that sometimes our life purpose isn't this big thing where either we're recognized or we're doing something huge for the world. What I had mentioned was, how about if you're just this happy person that's figured life out and you love every minute of life? Your purpose is you walk out the door and you're talking to people and you're smiling at them and you're saying hello to someone you don't know. And maybe one of those people, right? They are someone that they're just walking through life feeling like they're invisible. No one even recognizes me.
Exactly.
No one talks to me. No one sees me. Why am I here? Because there's people out there that think this way. And you walk by and you just smile at someone and say hello. And they're like, oh my God, someone noticed me. Someone smiled at me and said hi to me.
Right.
And you shift their whole entire life with just that hello or that smile. Life purpose could be something as simple as that. Just knowing who you are, being in love with yourself as a human being and knowing who you are and being able to project that out to the world can totally shift other people. And that could just be your life purpose.
Exactly.
So that was
And
like one of the things, that popped up for
I,
me when you were talking.
I think that's critical to young people today because their pinnacles or the ideology that's thrown at them 24/7 is it only can look like this. If
Right.
it doesn't look like this, you are inept or you're behind or you're slow or you're not fast enough. And already, I mean, all of us can remember when we're at that vulnerable age, you're already feeling that you can't keep up. So
Mm-hmm.
now that society is on super speed,
Yes.
literally on super speed, to offer alternatives, like this conference is fantastic because, as you said, like what you should teach in school today, and you see some schools that are curated for this, where it's finance, so that you know how to do that. You know how to
Mm-hmm.
navigate finance and taxes and all these things. You don't have to get anybody else to do it for you. Emotions, how to navigate your own emotions at any time in your life, how to understand nutrition in a way that's consistent throughout your life and how it biologically affects your body from anything. All of those things, we get very brief overview in academia.
We don't
Very
get taught
brief.
how to be a human being and how we're going to get on
No,
with our life. And it's so important, and especially more these days than ever. Like, this is even great for adults because it's like, how many of us are still trying to figure things out
I know.
in our 40s and 50s? And definitely looking forward to it. And yeah, and being able to teach people what their gifts are if they haven't figured out what they are. Because a lot of us, we get glimpses of them, right, when we're younger, and then we put them aside, or we're not sure, we're scared of what they are. But being able at a younger age to help people tap into what those gifts are and truly understand who they are and what they're passionate about, and that it's okay to follow that path and not what society is telling you to follow, so that you're living a happier life and you're not waiting until you're later in life to finally be like, you know what, I always wanted to do this and now I'm going to do it. Why not be able to do it at an earlier age?
Exactly. And you know what I think of what happens is people don't ask these individuals, but they're not often asked, what's your strength? Or they're not able to quantify. So young people I've worked with, it's like, oh, well, I don't have gifts. What do you mean by gift? And I'm like, okay, what's a strength you have? I'm
Yeah,
really
what are
good
you
at
good at?
makeup, or I'm good at doing makeup tutorial. Okay, fantastic. You're good at
Mhm.
doing a makeup tutorial. Who does that make feel good? You? Yeah. Why? Why do you feel good? Well, I feel good because I look good and people like me. Okay, take away the likes. Why do
Yeah.
you feel good doing it? Because it makes me feel my best. Okay, that's a strength. You can make yourself feel your best with a technique that you've learned how to create and use on yourself. That's a
And they can
strength.
do it for others. Yeah.
That's right. That's a strength, but it's not somebody else's. It's
Right.
your
It's
strength. And
yours.
it's not based on if somebody else likes it. It's yours. Right.
Yes.
So, I mean, that's very basic. Listen, I think for you, this conference, and what I was going to say, I don't always subscribe to, you have to knock down the internet and da da da. You don't, no, 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 no. Once you show people, like at this conference, that there are options to utilize their own energy in a way that is beyond anything that they're taught right now, a click, a like, fans, followers, da 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 da, a contract, all these things that if they honestly knew, it doesn't bring what they think. It's just curated so that
Exactly.
people have had nervous breakdowns from that type of stress and that level of having to be, air quotes again, perfect. So once they see, oh, wow, you know what? I know how to make a really healthy meal once a week. I don't have to like stop everything I'm doing. I can do that, by myself. I don't need to go online for that. Then it sparks their own intuition, their own creativity. It's exactly what's needed. It's
Yeah.
needed just for someone to have a reference point to explore themselves
They need clarity. They need to be
without judgment.
empowered. It's
Yeah.
just so important. This has been a long thing, I think, coming. And it just finally was the right time where two of us came together and we had the same vision finally be implemented. So looking forward to it. But yeah, I had to pop that in because it was interesting. I just had this conversation. Yeah, so I guess a little bit more about me. So my life was a little bit different. I didn't really have a lot of visions or anything growing up, but what happened with me was at a young age, I was really connected to nature. So it was more on that energy level where I would be outside. I was, a little tomboy. I would be outside talking to the sun, just enjoying the rays and playing with bugs and just I like to be by myself and I just felt like I guess nature was my friend at the time. I had this real connection. Then things, of course, change and you start having friends and you don't spend as much time alone. As I was reaching like elementary school, where I started to listen to people and I felt like I had the answers for them. Whatever they were having problems with, even at a young age, even if it was things that I didn't go through myself, I felt like I had answers. Like I felt like I just had this knowing. It was interesting how even other kids would come to me and it just like they felt connected to me to ask me for help and I would give them answers. You don't think anything of it. But as I continued to get older, this kept on happening. And I would have people that were like married and would have marriage questions. And I'm like, I'm not even married. I'm not even close to that age of yet where I don't even have a boyfriend. People would come to me. They just felt like I was someone that would listen and I would have
Exactly.
answers. And it was just the craziest thing. And I would just blur things out that I felt like I knew for them. And I just never understood it. This kind
Right.
of led me to go to college. At first I was thinking maybe I should be like a psychiatrist. And something told
Right.
me
Right.
no. Like I kept getting this
Exactly.
inner stuff saying, no, do not do that. And I fell into social work once I got out, I was working with adults that had autism and really helping them to wean them off medication from being in an institution and be part of an everyday life, learning how to brush their teeth and set the table.
Right.
So, such a great energy to be in watching these young men totally shift and become more aware of their
Right.
surroundings and life and be able to do things. And again, have that empowerment to be able to do things not fully on their own, but more on their own instead of being dependent on medication and just being in a little room, kind of walking around not
Right.
doing anything. I really liked to help people, no matter if it was having these conversations and just having this knowing of giving them the answers that would benefit them or helping in this manner. But for me, for the energy aspect, it wasn't till I got divorced. I had two little kids. I moved into a house by myself. I was a single parent at this time. This is where some unique things started to happen. I would lay awake at night just thinking about my life and where I was and why this happened. And interesting things started to happen. And I'm not going to get into all of these, but like toys would go off in the middle of the night that weren't even on saying time for night night and things that try to get my attention. And it's
Right.
like this was a whole whirlwind of smelling candles when they weren't lit and people seeing, a woman on my stairs and just this whole thing of like what's going on and feeling my bed move and something hug me and all of this stuff that happened at this time in my life where I was to come more aware of the energy and things around me. I wound up finding out that my grandmother, who was deceased, of course, was trying to connect with me and let me know that I was here for a higher purpose and that I went through a time after my divorce where I wasn't hanging out with the best people and put myself in maybe not the best scenarios. She was able to interact with me in a way that now I couldn't see her, never really had that gift, except in certain scenarios where I could see colors and visions. So something touches me, I could feel that. So it was all of these things that I was starting to become aware of when I had this situation that made me start to research more on energy. And I really started to learn about Reiki, how that energy, even be attuned to this energy, made me more aware of my own energies. And,
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
kept following like this path of, all right, what else is there? Because, well, this
Right.
is a different energy. I want to learn more about my energy. And I started working with like quantum energy. But this started to take me down a path where I started having these wonderful teachers and mentors and learning different techniques. Became a sacred soul practitioner with where I was able to be attuned to these beautiful codes, but also be able to take somebody back into their limiting beliefs and fears and clear them and download new emotions and be able to clear things from like 7 generations backwards and forwards. Just such a great journey to learn about things that I would have never learned about if
Exactly.
this experience didn't happen to me at the time. Just seems so out there. So what happened? I started to play around with it. I'm like, all right, let's start to work on people. Let's start to do Reiki at some of these events and just get myself out there a little bit because after working on myself for a little bit and getting acquainted with this energy and how I worked with it, I wanted to see how I could work with other people. What happened was I started working with different energies like yin yang energy, which is still one of my favorites, by the way. I would do like mini sessions at these events, would notice that I would start to hear, and not like I'm not hearing someone talking to me, but just more that knowing that claircognizance. But I would hear names for people. And, I also had taken a Doreen Virtue. Some of you may know who Doreen Virtue is. Her tarot readings, how to learn to work with tarot cards, and that you always blurt something out because when you're in the middle of doing anything energy, no matter if it's a tarot card reading or if you're in the middle of doing like a Reiki session, what's happening at that time, you're getting lots of signs come in. So for me, it was blurting these names out, and some of them were really different names like, do you know this person? It was always interesting because for the most part, they weren't people that were deceased. They were actually people that were still living that whoever I was working on kind of lost contact with, but that was always a mentor, someone really important in their life. And it was kind of like teaching them to get back with this person to reconnect because they were going to be able to help them move forward in their life, along with whatever I did with the energy work. And this started to scare me a little bit because the more I started doing this, I also noticed that I was starting to take on the feelings of some of the people that either I was working on or that had lost someone. One of the ways that I started getting out there with the Reiki was Facebook. I'm like, oh, it's the new moon or it's the full moon. I'm going to offer some free Reiki sessions, just, virtual. And so people would like pop on in a comment and say, I want one, I want one. And I would do like 3 or 4, like right after each other, but they were mini ones. So they didn't deplete me. But what was interesting and started getting me out there more where people were like, oh my goodness, there's something going on with Dawn that she's got the ability to do something here. Was I was working on a lady had mentioned to me, hey, I have a dog that is having some issues. Didn't tell me what the issues were, but just gave me the dog's name and a picture of the dog. So that was the last one that I had worked on at that point. So I get into the energy and I'm sending energy to this dog. And all of a sudden, like I lose sound in my ears and my neck starts to hurt really bad. I just keep going. I'm just like, all right, just let's work through this. The pain goes away. I get my hearing back. So I reach out to this person and I'm doing all of this on Facebook, not in private messages. This is like I'm responding to posts. And most people, I really didn't have like an experience like I did with this dog. It was more like, all right, I did your session. I message this woman and say, hey, this is what I felt, this is what I got. And she's like, oh my God, my 4-year-old son is on the dog, like pulling on the dog's neck, and my dog is deaf.
Oh,
So people saw this and they're like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. It was just very interesting. So after that, I started doing more, but then I was starting to pick up more. And I was starting to then, I think, bring in names of people that had started to pass. I was getting warnings for people of who to watch out for. I didn't understand. Me and you have talked about this. Like, sometimes you just don't understand what's going on. And I didn't understand this and it started to scare me. So I wound up shutting it off for a while. Totally put it away. Like I just said, I'm done. I don't understand it. I don't know what's going on, why I'm able to hear things through my thoughts. And I was able to feel a lot too through this whole process. Like, I could feel being touched like real gently on my head or my hands. But I think after a while, it just was scared of like, where is this going to go? Like, what else is going to open up for me? And since I didn't understand it, I just had to put it aside for a while. It wasn't until 2019 hit and I started getting visions for 2020, things that were for the future and for the world as a global scale. All right, what's going on here? I thought I shut all this down. At the same time as I'm getting these visions, and some of them were for me too, like seeing split things for myself. I went into 2020 where I was approached by someone at this frequency device that could scan your body and even scan your subconscious. And I'm like, well, I'm not really into technical things, but I was fascinated by this because I had put this other energy stuff aside for a little bit, except for the visions that were starting to pop up. But this was something new to me. And I actually meditated on it. And I saw that like this was for the future. This made the invisible visible. What intrigued me about that was, well, the reason I shut things down was because all these things were invisible to me and I didn't understand it. And if this was something that could show me by being visible what was going on, maybe I need to check this out. I wound up getting this one device and started using it. And I've been using it for the last almost 3.5 years, which has helped me to get back into that energy place with clients. I think
it's given you a form of communication.
Yeah.
That you can communicate. Right.
I still said to myself, all right, I'm willing to open up that other aspect of me too, not just be depending on a device, but it took that, seeing something like this where I could scan somebody. It's picking up their bioenergetic field, all related to science, using microcurrent and just quantum energy, being able to look at that and still go into a client session and opening myself up to receive whatever came through for that client has made this a little bit more, I don't know if I want to say the word safe. I guess it is safe for me because it's allowed me to again say, all right, you know what? This is a way to educate myself, not only my client, on what's going on in a way that I understand. And the more I do this, and the more I did do this, I was able to be more comfortable with like, all right, well, whatever else comes through with me, it's okay.
Well, you know why? Because it gives you a process. And when you're dealing with just feeling, seeing, whatever energy, even if it's like, oh, I have an idea. It's like, where did that idea come from? I don't know, but I didn't have it a minute ago. It becomes where this is like, it backs up what you're communicating and gives you a process. Like, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, you're going to see this. And then when you come back, we can discuss, and then you feel more comfortable opening up your energy because you know where it's going to be focused. It's
Yes.
just, I think what happens, people are exploring their own energy, whatever that is. Even if you're a scientist and you're going in and doing research and tests, and you don't, it's scary. Like everybody's talking about the movie that's out, oh my goodness, not Barbie, the other one.
I don't watch TV much, so I'm not even
No,
sure,
no,
to
no,
be
it's
honest
that,
with you.
but it's relevant. The one about the nuclear Oppenheimer.
Oh,
Oppenheimer.
okay.
That was energy, and people were terrified, as they should
Hmm.
be. You don't know what's going to happen. And those are physicists, scientists, engineers, the top in the world at that time. You don't know. You don't know. And it's that not knowing that makes people fearful, especially if it amplifies just
Absolutely.
through us.
Right.
Just through us. How the heck did that happen? You know? So I get it. It's good to have a process
And
to
it's kind of
support.
like what we were talking about with school. Like we don't learn this stuff. We're learning as we go. And yeah, when it starts to accelerate, the more we do it, it can be scary because we're still a lot of times not getting the answers on why or how this is happening. For me, it was like, all right, like I'm helping people. So I'm okay with whatever's going to come up. I know my power now. And I was able to say, look, I'm only interested in working with positive energy anyway. If anything else came through, I'm not scared of anything else anyway. And I think that sometimes when we don't know what's out there, we let our guard down and we just have to know that we are the most powerful people on this universe, that we let through whatever we want. For me, it was like giving me myself those boundaries of like, all right,
Exactly.
I'm going to open myself back up. I'm going to actually, yes, I'm going to use a device, and I'm also going to use my own intuition and what comes through so that I can best serve my clients. Yeah, this device actually was a godsend for me. It opened me up to other devices and tools that I'm using now. It's helped me to shape my purpose, which is one, yes, I love working with young adults and helping them to go within to really figure out what their divine power is and their gifts at a younger age. So they're not waiting till they're our age to be able to clear a lot of those limiting beliefs because they don't sometimes have as much as us, right? They don't have to go through as much as
Right.
we do as life challenges keep coming up. So if we can clear a lot for them and help them to realize like, you don't need to have this fear anymore. You don't need to have this block. You have the power. And yeah, sure, things are going to keep coming your way. But you know what? You are neutral to not judge it as good or bad. It's just part of life. And all right, why is this not happening to me, but why is this happening for me? How am I going to use this to my advantage? So when we can do that, we are powerful. We don't let anything
Right.
get in the way. We see it as a stepping stone to keep moving forward. So that's where I like to help these young adults is working with them as working on their mindset. They grow up in this technology, right? So having some of this technology that I use is awesome. Can you scan me? Let's do this. It makes it fun than
Right.
saying, hey, you're going to be talking to this coach today or this practitioner, and you're just going to be telling her your problems. They don't want to tell their problems. But when we can do it in a fun way like this and scan, oh, let's see what comes up. Let's see what's blocking your third chakra,
Right. Right.
it makes it more exciting and it's more geared towards what technology that they're
And
growing
it does
with
help
now.
to bring down the guard,
It
because a lot
does.
of what we build fear on is what we know, what we
Hmm.
think we know, and
What
what
we
we
think, right?
are, yeah, what we believe in any multifaceted ways. It helps the individual let down their guard because it's almost like it's very engaging.
Yes.
It's an engagement that is distracting from overthinking,
Right.
which is what tends to block us. We overthink in any
Oh,
way, which is
absolutely.
good, which is really good. We're definitely going to have to get like one of the podcasts on going
Oh,
deeper into that
yeah,
and
just that
getting,
alone. Yeah.
yeah,
Even with the young adults, like my other passion right now seems to be working with anyone that's really struggling with their health and their mindset. Because, we've gone through, a little bit of a hectic 2, 3 years. I seem to be kind of like you, where I'm the last resort where people have tried different things. If they've gone to the doctor and the doctor is like, well, I'm not sure what's going on with you. Here, do you want to try something more on the natural side?
Right.
I'll get calls. We'll go through the process of what resonates with them. And this is where, when you were talking about what resonates, because I like to start out with really just having a conversation with a client just to see where they are, see what comes up for me intuitively, but then also doing that scan, especially on a subconscious level, because sometimes within 5 minutes, I'm able to show them what's coming up on a conscious level and a subconscious level. And the subconscious level, of course, they may not have any clue. And it doesn't matter because that stuff's coming up. We can just clear it and just with frequency. And then, of course, on the conscious level, I give them ideas of things they can do. And that may just be journaling, it may just be tapping and working out those emotions, or maybe meditation practices. I have other tools that I'm using too. I have a device that works with a terahertz energy that mimics actually our human healthy cells. So if someone really has a lot of health issues, this doesn't replace medical. This isn't something that heals your body. All the tools that I use do not heal your body. What they do is they balance your body so that your body can heal itself, because our bodies are capable of healing themselves. We just need to get back to that place of homeostasis where it's capable of doing so. Having these other products and these devices that are natural, that don't have side effects, are such a great alternative when people feel like they have no other way. It's like, well, I'm older, so this is just the way it goes, or there's
Right.
no help for this specific thing. This is where I am passionate. People go, you need to go see Dawn. Or when I talk to people that I see at a meeting or in the street and we're talking about their health, that let's have a session, let's sit down and talk, because I know that I have something that will benefit. Giving them these options and then figuring out what resonates with them. This is where we usually start. For one example, I have a friend of mine, she was having migraines for over 40 years. And she was having them pretty much, I think, every week, been on medication. So I went to see her. So I hooked her up to my device, which has an aspect of microcurrent. So it talks directly to your cells. I also had the same device, I have a couple of them. I used the other one to do the conscious scan. And I had asked her, I'm like, when did these start? Let's go back to when these started and then figure out maybe between a year or so before then, what may have been going on in your life? What these migraines on? She had told me, 1920, what comes up? Usually control, right? This is exactly what came up in the subconscious. I read a lot of this stuff to her and she's like, oh my gosh, yeah, this is exactly what happened. This is what age I was in. I was so in control of my life. She's like, actually, I'm still in control. I still am
Right.
very controlling of things that I want. We did the frequency on her, and I had her hooked up for about an hour so that the pain that she was having with the migraine she was actually having at that time was working. And then I told her that I was going to work on her, because this device also works virtually. It's the same as like doing Reiki at a distance, that I would run her for the next couple weeks. And it was very interesting. The next thing I know, I'm getting a testimonial on Facebook that for 2 weeks, she didn't have any migraines.
Oh,
And
that's wonderful. That's good.
it's so I always tell people, no matter what device, or no matter if it's just, you're setting a goal for yourself, everything we do, it's our intention, right? So it's like 99% our intention. So if she went into this and like, yeah, this isn't going to work, but let's do it, it's not going to work, right? It's so important to have that intention of really trusting and wanting to work on yourself. Yes, this stuff works, but it also depends on us. I mean, we are, again, that power behind everything that we do. I have somebody else, he had problems with his eye where I want to say the retina was detaching. Can't remember the actual name for it, but we did some scans on him as well. I came up as one of the issues. We did some subconscious stuff as well. And I don't remember, because this was farther back, what came up on that scan. But for about a couple weeks, same thing. I was just running frequencies, ran some homeopathic ones for him, and went back to the eye doctor. At first, he was going to need surgery, but they wanted to check him like every couple of weeks just to see if it was getting worse before they decided if they were definitely going to do that. Well, it actually started to heal itself. And
Wow.
the
Right.
doctors told him that he was not going to need the surgery, but just to keep coming back like I think it was like every 6 weeks or a few months, to just see if it was still
Develop, right.
decreasing or if it was going to get worse again. The next time he went back, we still kept on doing the frequencies for, I want to say, a couple months. Actually, I was running every night to the point where they're like, it's healed even more. He literally just went back the other day and they're like, you don't need to come here anymore. You're good.
It's wonderful. That's great.
So I really think it's our
Mhm.
intention. It's the energy and the frequencies that I'm using that are just part of life.
I think it's just tapping into that there are options out there, that there are things that we can connect with that are self-sufficient without relying on others. And you see that many times. You see someone who, in many ways, you see people that, let's say they have diabetes, they're on a ton of medicine, and then they choose an alternative way of
Hmm.
living their life. And they're just like, that's it. I can't do this anymore.
Right.
And then they cure themselves of the diabetes from changing the way they think, eat, live their life, who they're hanging around, what they perceive, and it changes every dynamic, everything. It changes, the point they're not on medication anymore and they're living a lifestyle that they feel they have control of.
And I've seen that
There's so
happen.
much.
Yeah.
I have seen it happen, and I actually have someone, I was just away, who I was traveling, and this one individual, 25 medications.
Wow.
And literally she was like, how can you help? I'm like, well, we're going to do everything to get you off of 25 medications. She was like, no, 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 I need them to live. I'm like, no, you need not to eat the food that you're eating that makes you need them to live.
Right.
We need you to get the sleep you need. We need you to believe
Make
in
sure you're
yourself a little
hydrated
bit
and
more. Yeah, like all
all
of
of
those
this.
things. So
Yeah.
it's just another way of looking at it. It really is. And all of these tools or anything I would say was there by itself. She knew it. It was just reminding her. And the same with these modalities. They remind you of things that but
Hmm.
you forget. You forget, and you get, I'm not saying like medication is a necessity for many people. And the medical
Absolutely.
profession could be, if I'm having a heart attack and my heart's ready to stop,
Right. Right. Yes, you
it would be
definitely need
foolish to go,
something.
you don't
Right.
so you do, but there is an excess of quick fix in anything, in anyone going, I'm better, in anything, mentally, physically, intellectually. Anyway, oh yeah, yeah, I know that because I read 2 seconds of a book. No, I don't. Like, there's a whole process that comes with it. I don't mean academia. I actually mean, like, have you lived the life of that person? Have you explored whatever it is? Have you really tried? And is it tested for you? So I think anything. I think for us to be able to bring these things and have the experiences where we're bringing these options and different views to the table for people is the most we can do. Well, that's where for this podcast, us to bring other modalities that maybe we have been exposed to, or we haven't even
Right.
been
We may not
exposed to,
even
so
know
we can
about.
understand.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's what I'm excited about, because anytime I hear something new, I'm like, okay, how did it help and who did it help? That's what I
Right.
want to know. How did it
Exactly.
help? And what were they specifically going through? And then as human beings, you're like, you relate. Oh yeah, I have similar. You relate a cause or a symptom or something. That would be nicer to relate to things that are perhaps organic that have worked. That's
Hmm.
all I'm saying. If
Yeah.
they've organic, and this is something that what you're describing, very fun and organic. It works off of your own energy. So I think this is exciting.
It's
This is
very
good.
exciting. And I know we're going to have so many great speakers coming on that have incredible modalities and products. And we're going to learn so much too, which is going to be even fun.
It is. It is. First of all, thank you for bringing me on this, because I'm not like avid user of podcasting face to face, and so this is exciting. So thank you, Dawn.
Well, and thank you for joining me on this. And, thanks for anyone that's going to be tuning in on this as well. If you have any feedback, if you have any testimonials and reviews for us, or even questions, or maybe even, somebody that you would love specific modality or a type of healer that you would love us to interview, definitely leave some comments. You can find us and connect with us on any podcast platform. You can also find us on YouTube and Instagram, and it's going to be Empowering Insights Podcast. So definitely, leave any feedback there as well.